Hi and welcome back. So in the previous video, we made the conclusion that the fear of technological unemployment comes from the dimension of technological progress we haven't looked at so far, which is structural change. That is the change in structure of the economy induced by technological progress. So this happened in such a way that for some workers, those with skills no longer in demand, structural change may indeed mean unemployment or lower wages or even both. So in this video we're going to look at that concept. So technological progress is a process of structural change, as we've already alluded. So the theme was central to the work of Joseph Schumpeter, who basically alluded that the process of growth was fundamentally a process of creative destruction. So this means that new goods are developed, making old ones obsolete. So new techniques of production are introduced, requiring new skills and making some old skills less useful. We therefore have what he called a churning process. So many professions, from blacksmith to hands maker, have disappeared over the years. So because of productivity, agricultural share of output has been shrinking for many countries over the time. And with that has come a reduction in employment in the agricultural sector. This is due to technological progress that has brought the structural change that demanded different types of skills from those that were used in the past. For instance, at the beginning of the 20th century, there were 11 million farm workers in the United States. But by the year 2000, then the number had shrunk to less than 1 million. So at the same time, there are more than 3 million bus, taxi, and truck drivers, jobs that didn't exist in the past. In 1960, on the other hand, there were no computer programmers. Today, there are more than 1 million programmers in the United States. So there is a tension between winners and losers when it comes to technological progress. This suggests that when technological progress occurs, those with the appropriate skills will be better off, and those without the required skills will lose their jobs. Likewise, shareholders of firms that adopt new technologies make more profit with the invention of technology, and workers in dying industries lose out and become bitter in some instances. Hence the history we've seen that unemployment being blamed on technological progress. So technological progress hasn't only been blamed for unemployment. There's also a different narrative that with the improvement of technology comes the increase in inequality in the workplaces. So let's look at this narrative. So this process happens in such a way that for those in growing sectors or those with the right skills, technological progress leads to new opportunities and higher wages. But for those in declining sectors or those with skills that are no longer in demand, technological progress can mean the loss of their jobs. So it will mean that they will go through a period of unemployment and possibly much lower wages. So in the past 25 years, in the United States, we've seen a large increase in wage inequality. And most economists believe that one of the main culprits behind this increase is technological progress. So let's look at the evolution of real wage for various workers by education level. So this figure here shows the evolution of relative wages for various groups of workers by education level from 1973 to 2007. So each of the four lines in the figure show the evolution of the wage of workers with a given level of education. So we have some high school education, we have high school diploma, and we have some university degree and an advanced degree. So all of these wage curves are looked at relative to wages of workers who only have high school diploma, hence the straight line here, which means that that's our comparison factor. All relative wages are further divided by their value in 1973. So the resulting wage series are all equal to 1 in 1973. Hence, now they are all equal at that point. So this figure yields a very striking conclusion. So if you can look very well, starting around the early 1980s, workers with low levels of education have seen their relative wage fall steadily over time. As you can see, the ones with some level of education sort of decrease over time, while workers with high levels of education have seen their relative wage rise steadily. As you can see, as you get more educated, we see an increase in your wage level, such that those with an advanced degree earn more than the ones with a university degree, and those with a university degree earn more than the ones with just some level of university attendance. And as you can see at the bottom here, the bottom end of the education ladder, the relative wage of workers who have not completed high school has significantly declined. So the conclusion we can make from this is that due to technological progress and skilling, wage inequality has increased a lot in the United States over the last 30 years, or over these 30 years that were observed. Now, the key question to ask is what exactly causes this increase in wage inequality? So let's look at that. So I'm sure there is a general agreement that we can make here that the main factor behind the increase in the wage of high skilled relative to wages of low skilled workers is a steady increase in the demand for high skilled workers relative to the demand for low skilled workers. Also, globalization and increase in international trade has also been blamed, in the sense that low skilled jobs have been moved to low wage jurisdiction, particularly in the case of developing countries like South Africa. So in South Africa, for instance, we know that for the most skilled groups, they have to move in the most developed areas such as Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Pretoria or Durban to get a good paying job. So the conclusion we can make from this is that while trade and technological progress are good for the economy, the structural change that emerges makes a section of the population worse off. In the sense that while the more skilled are becoming better off, the less skilled are becoming worse off. So the solution is that more skill and more education is required to ensure workers are not disadvantaged in the presence of technological progress. So the last part is basically to look at the institutions and technological progress and growth. So to end this chapter, we want to return to the issue raised at the end of the previous chapter, that for poor countries, technological progress is more a process of imitation than a process of innovation. China and other Asian countries, for instance, make it look easy because they can imitate what other countries develop and do. So the important question to ask now is why then are so many other countries unable to do the same, especially in Africa? Why do we have so many poor countries? And why can't they do the same, simply imitate and adopt what other countries do? So the answer is that, or rather, what most economics believe is that the main source of problems for poor countries in general lies in their poor institutions, in the sense that the low level of technological progress can be improved with better institutions, something that most developing or African countries don't have. So why are institutions so important as alluded by economists? So at the broad level, the institutions are basically important for the protection of property rights, which may as well be the most important role of institutions. So the idea is that few individuals are going to create firms, introduce new technologies, and invest if they expect that profits will be taken by the state or extracted in bribes by corrupt politicians, or in some case stolen by people in the economy. So the protection of property rights means in practice a good political system in which those in charge cannot expropriate or seize the property of the citizens, especially those that they acquired fairly and legally. It also means a good judicial system where disagreements can be resolved efficiently, rapidly, and fairly. So the list can go on and on. So why exactly don't poor countries adopt these good institutions? The answer is that it is basically hard to do so. Good institutions are complex and difficult for poor countries to put in place. A perfect example would be the case study of North Korea and South Korea, two countries that, after being formally divided into two countries, they adopted two different methods of governance, where institutions and organization of the economy were dramatically different during the periods of South and North Korea. So South Korea relied on a capitalist organization of the economy with strong state intervention, but also private ownership and legal protection of private producers, while North Korea relied on more of a central planning, where industries were basically quickly nationalized. As well, what also happened in North Korea is that small firms and farms were forced to join large cooperatives so they could be easily supervised by the state. There were no private property rights for individuals, and the result was the decline in the industrial sector and the collapse of agriculture. So the lesson is quite sad here, but very transparent. Institutions matter very much for growth, as we can see the increase in the production or GDP of the country that adopted institutions, and decline in the GDP of the country that decided to use the command system. All right, so we're going to end here for chapter 13. So we'll start with chapter 14 in the next video. Thank you.